Robert Charles Durman Mitchum was an American film actor, author, composer and singer. He is number 23 on the American Film Institute's list of the greatest male American screen legends of all time. Mitchum rose to prominence for his starring roles in several major works of the film noir style, and is considered a forerunner of the anti-heroes prevalent in film during the 1950s and 1960s. He may be best remembered for his roles in such films as The Story of G.I. Joe, Crossfire, Out of the Past, The Night of the Hunter, and Cape Fear. Early years: Mitchum was born in Bridgeport, Connecticut into a Methodist family. His mother, Anne Harriet Mitchum, was a Norwegian immigrant and sea captain's daughter, and his father, James Thomas Mitchum, was of Scots-Ulster descent and was a shipyard and railroad worker. A sister, Annette, was born in 1914. James Mitchum was crushed to death in a railyard accident in Charleston, South Carolina, in February 1919, when his son was less than 2 years old. After his father's death, his mother was awarded a government pension, and soon realized she was pregnant. She returned to her family in Connecticut, and married a former Royal Naval Reserve officer, Lieutenant Hugh Cunningham Morris RNVR, who helped her care for the children. In September 1919 a second son, John, was born. Anne and the Major also had a daughter, Carol Morris, who was born July 1927 on the family farm in Delaware. When all of the children were old enough to attend school, Anne found employment as a linotype operator for the Bridgeport Post. Throughout Mitchum's childhood, he was known as a prankster, often involved in fist fights and mischief. When he was 12, his mother sent Mitchum to live with his grandparents in Felton, Delaware, where he was promptly expelled from his middle school for scuffling with a principal. A year later, in 1930, he moved in with his older sister, in New York's Hell's Kitchen. After being expelled from Heron High School, he left his sister and traveled throughout the country on railroad cars, taking a number of jobs including ditch digging for the Civilian Conservation Corps and professional boxing. He experienced numerous adventures during his years as one of the Depression-era's wild boys of the road. At age 14 in Savannah, Georgia, he was arrested for vagrancy and put on a local chain gang. By Mitchum's own account, he escaped and returned to his family in Delaware. It was during this time, while recovering from injuries that nearly cost him a leg, that he met the woman he would marry, a teenage Dorothy Spence. He soon went back on the road, eventually riding the rails to California. Acting career: Mitchum arrived in Long Beach, California, in 1936, staying again with his sister Julie. Soon the rest of the Mitchum family joined them in Long Beach. During this time he worked as a ghostwriter for astrologer Carol Reiter. It was Sister Julie who convinced him to join the local theater guild with her. In his years with the Players Guild of Long Beach, he made a living as a stagehand and occasional bit player in company productions. He also wrote several short pieces which were performed by the guild. According to Lee Server's biography, Mitchum put his talent for poetry to work writing song lyrics and monologues for his sister Julie's nightclub performances. In 1940 he returned east to marry Dorothy Spence, taking her back to California. He remained a footloose character until the birth of their first child, James Mitchum, nicknamed Josh. Mitchum then got a steady job as a machine operator with the Lockheed Aircraft Corporation. A nervous breakdown, apparently from job-related stress, led Mitchum to look for work as an actor or extra in movies. An agent he had met got him an interview with the producer of the Hopalong Cassidy series of B-Westerns. He was hired to play the villain in several films in the series during 1942 and 1943. He continued to find further work as an extra and supporting actor in numerous productions for various studios. After impressing director Mervyn Leroy during the making of 30 Seconds Over Tokyo, Mitchum signed a 7-year contract with RKO Radio Pictures. He found himself groomed for B-Western stardom in a series of Zane Grey adaptations. Following the moderately successful Western Nevada, Mitchum was lent from RKO to United Artists for the William Wellman-helmed The Story of G.I. Joe. In the film, he portrayed war-weary officer Bill Walker, who remains resolute despite the troubles he faces. The film, which followed the life of an ordinary soldier through the eyes of journalist Ernie Pyle, became an instant critical and commercial success. Shortly after making the film, Mitchum himself was drafted into the United States Army, serving at Fort MacArthur, California. At the 1946 Academy Awards, The Story of G.I. Joe was nominated for 4 Oscars, including Mitchum's only nomination for Best Supporting Actor. He finished the year off with a western and a story of returning Marine veterans, before filming in a genre that came to define Mitchum's career and screen persona, film noir. Film noir, Mitchum was initially known for his work in film noir. His first foray into the genre was a supporting role in the B-film When Strangers Marry, about newlyweds and a New York City serial killer. Undercurrent, another of Mitchum's early noirs, featured him playing against type as a troubled, sensitive man entangled in the affairs of his brother and his brother's suspicious wife. John Brahm's The Locket featured Mitchum as bitter ex-husband to Lorraine Day's femme fatale. Raoul Walsh's Pursuit combined Western and noir styles, with Mitchum's character attempting to recall his past and find those responsible for killing his family. Crossfire featured Mitchum as a member of a group of soldiers, one of whom kills a Jewish man in an act of anti-Jewish hatred. It featured themes of anti-Semitism and the failings of military training. The film, directed by Edward Dmytryk, earned 5 Academy Award nominations. Following Crossfire, Mitchum starred in Out of the Past, directed by Jacques Tourneur and featuring the cinematography of Nicholas Musharaka. Mitchum played Jeff Markham, a small-town gas station owner whose unfinished business with gambler Whit Sterling and femme fatale Kathy Moffat, comes back to haunt him. On September 1, 1948, after a string of successful films for RKO, Mitchum and actress Leela Leeds were arrested for possession of marijuana. The arrest was the result of a sting operation designed to capture other Hollywood partiers as well, but Mitchum and Leeds did not receive the tip-off. After serving a week at the county jail, Mitchum spent 43 days at a Castaic, California prison farm, with Life magazine photographers right there taking photos of him mopping up in his prison uniform. The arrest became the inspiration for the exploitation film She Shoulda Said No, which starred Leeds. The conviction was later overturned by the Los Angeles Court and District Attorney's Office on January 31, 1951, with the following statement: after it was exposed as a setup, whether despite, or because of, his troubles with the law and his studio, the films released immediately after his arrest were box office hits. Rachel and the Stranger featured Mitchum in a supporting role as a mountain man competing for the hand of Loretta Young, the indentured servant and wife of William Holden, while he appeared in the film adaptation of John Steinbeck's novella The Red Pony as a trusted cowhand to a ranching family. He returned to true film noir in The Big Steal, where he again joined Jane Greer in an early Don Siegel film. Career in the 1950s and 1960s, in Where Danger Lives, Mitchum played a doctor who comes between a mentally unbalanced Faith Domergue and cuckolded Claude Rains. The Racket was a noir remake of the early crime drama of the same name and featured Mitchum as a police captain fighting corruption in his precinct. The Josef von Sternberg film Macau saw Mitchum a victim of mistaken identity at an exotic resort casino, playing opposite Jane Russell. Otto Preminger's Angel Face was the first of 3 collaborations between Mitchum and British stage actress Jean Simmons, in which she plays an insane heiress who plans to use young ambulance driver Mitchum to kill for her. Mitchum was expelled from Blood Alley, purportedly due to his conduct, especially his reportedly having thrown the film's transportation manager into San Francisco Bay. According to Sam Osteen's memoir, Cut to the Chase, Mitchum showed up on set after a night of drinking and tore apart a studio office when they didn't have a car ready for him. Mitchum walked off the set of the 3rd day of filming Blood Alley, claiming he could not work with the director. Because Mitchum was showing up late and behaving erratically, producer John Wayne, after failing to obtain Humphrey Bogart as a replacement, took over the role himself. Following a series of conventional westerns and films noirs, including the Marilyn Monroe vehicle River of No Return, he appeared in Charles Laughton's only film as director, The Night of the Hunter. Based on a novel by Davis Grubb, the thriller starred Mitchum as a monstrous criminal posing as a preacher to find money hidden by his cellmate in the cellmate's home. His performance as Reverend Harry Powell is considered by many to be one of the best of his career. Stanley Kramer's melodrama Not as a Stranger, also released in 1955, was a box office hit. The film starred Mitchum against type, as an idealistic young doctor, who marries an older nurse, only to question his morality many years later. However, the film was not well received, with most critics pointing out that Mitchum, Frank Sinatra and Lee Marvin were all too old for their characters. Olivia de Havilland received top billing over Mitchum and Sinatra. On March 8, 1955, Mitchum formed DRM Productions to produce 5 films for United Artists. The first film was banded, although only 4 films were produced. Following a succession of average westerns and the poorly received Foreign Intrigue, Mitchum starred in the first of 3 films with Deborah Kerr. The John Huston war drama Heaven Knows, Mr. Allison, starred Mitchum as a Marine corporal shipwrecked on a Pacific island with a nun, Sister Angela, being his sole companion. In this character study, they struggle to resist the elements and the invading Japanese army. The film was nominated for 2 Academy Awards, including Best Actress and Best Adapted Screenplay. For his role, Mitchum was nominated for a BAFTA Award for Best Foreign Actor. In the WWII submarine classic The Enemy Below, Mitchum gave a strong performance as U.S. Naval Lieutenant Commander Murrell, the captain of a U.S. Navy destroyer who matches wits with a German U-boat captain Kurt Jurgens. The movie won an Oscar for special effects. Thunder Road, the second DRM production, was loosely based on an incident in which a driver transporting moonshine was said to have crashed to his death on Kingston Pike in Knoxville, Tennessee, somewhere between Bearden Hill and Morrell Road. According to Metro Pulse writer Jack Renfro, the incident occurred in 1952 and may have been witnessed by James Agee, who passed the story on to Mitchum, who not only starred in the movie, but also produced the film, co-wrote the screenplay, and is rumored to have directed much of the film himself. Mitchum also co-wrote the theme song, The Ballad of Thunder Road. He returned to Mexico for The Wonderful Country and Island for A Terrible Beauty, The Night Fighters for the last of his DRM productions. Mitchum and Kerr reunited for the Fred Zinnemann film, The Sundowners, where they played husband and wife struggling in Depression-era Australia. Opposite Mitchum, Kerr was nominated for yet another Academy Award for Best Actress, while the film was nominated for a total of 5 Oscars. Robert Mitchum was awarded that year's National Board of Review Award for Best Actor for his performance. The award also recognized his superior performance in the Vincent Minnelli Western drama Home from the Hill. He was teamed with former leading ladies Kerr and Simmons, as well as Cary Grant, for the Stanley Donen comedy The Grass is Greener the same year. Mitchum's performance as the menacing Southern rapist Max Cady in Cape Fear brought him even more attention and furthered his renown as playing cool, predatory characters. The 1960s were marked by a number of lesser films and missed opportunities. Among the films Mitchum passed on during the decade was John Huston's The Misfits, the last film of his stars Clark Gable and Marilyn Monroe, the Academy Award winning Patton, and Dirty Harry. The most notable of his films in the decade included the war epics The Longest Day and Enzio, the Shirley MacLaine comedy musical What a Way to Go, and the Howard Hawks western El Dorado, a remake of Rio Bravo, in which Mitchum took over Dean Martin's role of the drunk who comes to the aid of John Wayne. Music career. One of the lesser-known aspects of Mitchum's career was his forays into music, both as singer and composer. Mitchum's voice was often used instead of that of a professional singer when his characters sang in his films. Notable productions featuring Mitchum's own singing voice included Rachel and the Stranger, River of No Return and The Night of the Hunter. After hearing traditional calypso music and meeting artists such as Mighty Sparrow and Lord Invader while filming Heaven Knows, Mr. Allison in the Caribbean island of Tobago, he recorded Calypso Is Like So. In March 1957. On the album, released through Capitol Records, he emulated the calypso sound and style, even adopting the style's unique pronunciations and slang. A year later he recorded a song he had written for the film Thunder Road, titled The Ballad of Thunder Road. The country-style song became a modest hit for Mitchum, reaching no. 69 on the Billboard Pop Singles chart. The song was included as a bonus track on a successful reissue of Calypso, and helped market the film to a wider audience. Although Mitchum continued to use his singing voice in his film work, he waited until 1967 to record his follow-up record, That Man, Robert Mitchum, Sings. The album, released by Nashville-based Monument Records, took him further into country music, and featured songs similar to the Ballad of Thunder Road. Little Old Wine Drinker Me, the first single, was a top 10 hit at country radio, reaching no. 9 there, and crossed over onto mainstream radio, where it peaked at no. 96. Its follow-up, You Deserve Each Other, also charted on the Billboard Country Singles chart. He sang the title song to the Western Young Billy Young, made in 1969. Mitchum co-wrote and composed the music for an oratorio which was produced by Orson Welles at the Hollywood Bowl. Albums, singles, later career. Mitchum made a departure from his typical screen persona with the 1970 David Lean film Ryan's Daughter, in which he starred as Charles Shaughnessy, a mild-mannered schoolmaster in World War I-era Ireland. Though the film was nominated for 4 Academy Awards and Mitchum was much publicized as a contender for a Best Actor nomination, he was not nominated. George C. Scott won the award for his performance in Patton, a project Mitchum had rejected for Ryan's Daughter. The 1970s featured Mitchum in a number of well-received crime dramas. The Friends of Eddie Coyle saw the actor playing an aging Boston hoodlum caught between the feds and his criminal friends. Sidney Pollack's The Yakuza transplanted the typical film noir story arc to the Japanese underworld. He also appeared in 1976's Midway about an epic 1942 World War II battle. Mitchum's stint as an aging Philip Marlowe in the Raymond Chandler adaptation Farewell, My Lovely was sufficiently well received by audiences and critics for him to reprise the role in 1978's The Big Sleep. In 1982, Mitchum went on location to Scranton, Pennsylvania to play Coach Delaney in the film adaptation of playwright-actor Jason Miller's 1973 Pulitzer Prize-winning play that championship season. He expanded to television work with the 1983 miniseries The Winds of War. The big-budget Herman Wilkes story aired on ABC, starring Mitchum as naval officer Pug Henry, and examined the events leading up to America's involvement in World War II. He followed it in 1988 with War and Remembrance. Mitchum starred opposite Wilford Brimley in the 1986 made-for-TV movie Thompson's Run. A hardened con, being transferred from a federal penitentiary to a Texas institution to finish a life sentence as a habitual criminal, is freed at gunpoint by his niece. The cop who was transferring him, and has been the con's lifelong friend and adversary for over 30 years, vows to catch the twosome. In 1987, Mitchum was the guest host on Saturday Night Live where he played Private Eye Philip Marlowe for the last time in the parody sketch, Death Be Not Deadly. The show also ran a short comedy film he made called Out of Gas, a mock sequel to Out of the Past. In 1991, Mitchum won a Lifetime Achievement Award from the National Board of Review of Motion Pictures and the Cecil B. DeMille Award from the Golden Globe Awards in 1992. Although Mitchum continued to appear in films throughout the 1990s, such as Tombstone, Jim Jarmusch's Dead Man, and appeared in contrast to his role as the antagonist in the original, a protagonist police detective in Martin Scorsese's remake of Cape Fear, the actor gradually slowed his workload. His last film appearance was a small but pivotal role in the television biopic, James Dean, Race with Destiny, playing giant director George Stevens. His last starring role was in the 1995 Norwegian movie Pakten. Politics. Mitchum was a conservative Republican along with such contemporaries as Charlton Heston, James Stewart, Ronald Reagan, Ginger Rogers, John Wayne, Hugh O'Brien, and Jane Russell. Death. A lifelong heavy smoker, Mitchum died on July 1, 1997, in Santa Barbara, California, due to complications of lung cancer and emphysema. He was about 5 weeks short of his 80th birthday. His body was cremated and his ashes scattered at sea. He was survived by his wife of 57 years, Dorothy Mitchum, and actor sons, James Mitchum, Christopher Mitchum, and daughter Patrina Mitchum. His grandchildren, Bentley Mitchum and Carrie Mitchum, are actors, as was his younger brother, John, who died in 2001. Another grandson, Kian, is a successful model. Legacy. Mitchum is regarded by critics as one of the finest actors of the golden age of Hollywood. Roger Ebert called him the soul of film noir. Mitchum himself, however, was self-effacing. In an interview with Barry Norman for the BBC about his contribution to cinema, Mitchum stopped Norman in mid-flow and in his typical phlegmatic style said, "Look, I have two kinds of acting. One on a horse and one off a horse. That's it." He had also succeeded in annoying some of his fellow actors by voicing his puzzlement at those who viewed the profession as challenging and hard work. He is quoted as having said in the Barry Norman interview that acting was actually very simple and that his job was to show up on time, know his lines, hit his marks, and go home. Mitchum had a habit of marking most of his appearances in the script with the letters NAR, which meant no action required, which critic Dirk Baecker has construed as Mitchum's way of reminding himself to experience the world of the story without acting upon it. Interviewer Larry King stated on a number of occasions that Mitchum's interview was his most challenging. Mitchum, a man of few words, tended to answer simply yes or no to many of King's questions. AFI's 100 Years. 100 Stars lists Mitchum as the 23rd greatest actor in American cinema. AFI also recognized his performance as the menacing rapist Max Cady and Reverend Harry Powell as the 28th and 29th greatest screen villains, respectively, of all time as part of AFI's 100 Years. 100 Heroes and Villains. He provided the voice of the famous American Beef Council commercials that touted beef. It's What's for Dinner, from 1992 until his death. There is a Mitchum Steakhouse in Trapp, Maryland, where Mitchum and his family lived from 1959-65. Filmography, features. Short subjects, The Magic of Makeup, Screen Snapshots, Hollywood Goes to Bat, Waiting for the Wind, Discography, Albums, Calypso Is Like So. That Man, Robert Mitchum, Sings Country, No A35, Singles, The Ballad of Thunder Road Pop, No A62. Little Old Wine Drinker Me Country, No A9 Pop, No A96, You Deserve Each Other Country, No A55, References, Note. Bibliography. External links, Robert Mitchum at the Internet Movie Database, Robert Mitchum at the TCM Movie Database, profile at Turner Classic Movies, Photographs and Literature. The short film Staff Film Report 66-12A is available for free download at the Internet Archive. More